Part 8. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 71. But by then, you might feel very uncomfortable. The threatening words and hoarse voice gave people goosebumps. The scarred man said coldly, "Soul catcher, bloodthirster, no need to waste time talking to him. Just do it, get the things, and find a way to deal with the people outside." The scarred man's voice fell, and 5 dark silver threads spread all over his body. The threads intertwined into a network in front of him, covering Lin Yi. "Just do it, no nonsense, the scarred man is very dangerous. These dark silver threads are very sharp and seem to have unique characteristics." Lin Yi could feel the huge danger rushing towards him while sitting in the chair. With a thought, 5 blood-colored tentacles appeared out of thin air and entangled with these threads. Zzz. The powerful force and corrosiveness of the blood-colored tentacles instantly tore the silver thread network. After the 5 blood-colored tentacles tore the threads, they whipped towards the scarred man like steel whips. The sound of breaking air tore the air apart, and the wind pressure came, and the scarred man's face changed drastically. Dozens of silver threads appeared out of thin air in his hands, weaving a very dense network in front of him. Bang! With a loud bang, the mesh in front of the scarred man was instantly pierced by 5 tentacles, and all the attacks fell on him. Puff! 5 tentacles, like steel guns, directly pierced him, and 5 blood holes appeared in his upper body. There was disbelief in his eyes, and the 5 tentacles gushed out with the blood in his body. It can be seen with the naked eye that the scarred man's whole body was directly dried up, his skin and flesh were yellow, and the blood was completely drained. The death was extremely miserable. Everything happened in an instant, and the scarred man among the 3 was killed on the spot. The soul-catching woman and the bloodthirsty man changed their faces and looked at Lin Yi in shock. And the 5 bloody tentacles growing in the air around him. The 2 of them were cold all over, as if they had seen something incredible. "Damn it, you are a practitioner of strange power. Who are you?" The 2 of them were facing a formidable enemy. The hoarse voice of the soul-catching woman was filled with a strange black air, and a sound wave seemed to be about to burst out at any time. The bloodthirsty man was covered with traces of blood, and his breath surged rapidly, as if his physical ability had greatly improved. Looking at the changes in the 2, Lin Yi smiled faintly. "Me. Just an ordinary boss, responsible for handling events entrusted by others. If you have trouble, you can also entrust me, as long as the price you pay is enough. This person started first, so I killed him to set an example. Now are you going to continue or leave?" Looking at Lin Yi with an inexplicable smile, a chill rose in their hearts. The person in front of them was definitely not something they could deal with, and retreating was the wisest choice. Gilug. The middle-aged man, the bloodthirsty man, swallowed his saliva and slowly retreated to the back. His forehead was covered with sweat, and he looked at Lin Yi with a serious face, maintaining the highest vigilance. The soul-catching woman at the side also retreated with him. The 2 of them looked nervous, and they had completely lost the high spirits they had when they first came in. Lin Yi just watched them leave quietly, and did not stop them. He needed some people to publicize his danger and create a sense of mystery at the same time. Mystery and the unknown can make people afraid. The moment the soul-catching woman and the bloodthirsty man left the Wanqi house, they rushed madly in 2 different directions of the street. They were so scared that they dared not stop for a moment. The pressure Lin Yi put on them was too great. They had never encountered such a calm and crazy killer. They rushed out less than 100 meters before they were intercepted by someone, and then were respectfully invited into the darkness of the street. Nothing happened in the Wanqi house without a sound, and people outside didn't know what happened inside. In a house, Lai Kuyang looked at the soul-catching woman. "You said that Lin Yi is a practitioner of weird power." The soul-catching woman's face was a little gloomy. She belonged to a small weird side force, the Death Research Institute. She had also heard of Li Kuyang's name. The Li family was a famous ancient family in the empire. They had countless group companies under their command, and their death research institute could not afford to provoke them. The other party stopped her halfway, and she really couldn't leave, so she could only follow him here. But she knew that the other party would not kill, and any force would be very cautious when facing people on the weird side. Weird things have various abilities, some of which can kill people silently and ignore their levels. Therefore, the forces on the weird side are usually very safe, and no one is willing to provoke them casually. Unless they meet someone like Lin Yi, who is completely reckless. After telling Li Kuyang clearly what she saw, the soul-catching woman was released by Li Kuyang. His eyes were a little solemn. The power displayed by the Wanchaiwu, the tip of the iceberg, was already comparable to the human immortal master. Li Bolun next to him also frowned. Lin Yi from the Wanchaiwu is not simple. He is unknown, but he is actually a practitioner of strange power. From what the soul-catching woman said just now, he may have reached the third level of beginners. He is not inferior to the masters of human immortals. Could he be affiliated with some strange force? Li Kuyang shook his head. It's hard to say. Strange things have existed since ancient times. No one knows what hidden horrors exist. The owner of the Wanchaiwu, let's take a closer look. Maybe someone else will try it. No hurry. Li Kuyang was very calm, looking at the Wanchaiwu in the distance with a calm look. On the other side, the bloodthirsty man looked at the man in front of him with a pale face. White gloves Mo. His teeth were trembling a little. He was familiar with Mo's fierce reputation. Tell me, what did you encounter in there? The bloodthirsty man was pale, without hiding anything, and directly told Mo everything he saw. Mo's face showed a bit of weirdness after hearing it. This guy is the peak of the weird power beginner? It's really interesting. Is this person a hidden big cow? With a hint of interest, Mo's mouth showed a weird and somewhat crazy expression. But his eyes became colder and colder, like a pool of cold deep springs. The bloodthirsty man on the side did not dare to say more, for fear of angering the famous white gloves genius. Before he turned around, a white shadow had left in front of him. Mo walked out of the shadows and headed towards the Wanchaiwu, attracting the attention of many people. Hey, Mo moved. Bai Yuming, deputy commander of the blood department, showed a hint of surprise in his eyes. Everyone's eyes quickly locked on Mo. This person is a powerful existence, also at the level of a controller. Ringing. Lin Yi looked at Mo, who pushed the door in, and a trace of solemnity flashed in his eyes. The brilliance of the true destiny in his eyes flashed. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 72. A deep and strange force condensed in his body, like a deep black hole of ice with no end in sight. This person is definitely not inferior to Yan Menjao, or even stronger. Lin Yi had fought against Yan Menjao, and even though it was just a one-time encounter, he also knew that he was no match based on sheer strength alone. It seems that I have to use all my strength to suppress this person. Is he full of white hair? Mo with white gloves? If he is defeated, it will be enough to scare many people with evil intentions. In a sense, Mo is very similar to Lin Yi, both have an extreme kind of madness. With a smile on his lips, he looked at Lin Yi. Let me introduce myself, I am Mo from White Gloves. Lin Yi, I heard that you killed Li Huan. Your method was good. Lin Yi looked at him and smiled back, I don't know that. I am a law-abiding citizen. Mo smiled even brighter, what a good citizen, you are so funny. His eyes scanned the hall, but he didn't see the body of the scarred man cutter. There was a trace of surprise in his eyes, there is no smell of blood at all. You handled the cutter's corpse very quickly. Lin Yi smiled broadly, are you talking about the scarred man just now? He left, So don't talk nonsense. Law-abiding citizens never break the law without knowing it. The scarred man's body had long been absorbed by the strange space, leaving no trace behind. Seeing Lin Yi's expression of not admitting anything, the smile on Mo Bai's face gradually turned crazy. You are so interesting. Let me see if your abilities are as interesting. As he spoke, Mo Bai had already moved, and a deep black cold air spread out from under his feet. Centered on him, the ground with a radius of 1 meter was covered with a layer of black ice. Sharp black ice crystals rose from beneath his feet, and one of them grew directly in front of him. Mo Bai stretched out his hand and gently held the piece of black ice. Click. With a crisp sound, a black ice sword appeared in his hand. The name of the sword, Black Blood Merciless, please give me some advice. As he spoke, Mo Bai slashed at Lin Yi with his sword, tearing the void with terrifying power. The sword light was sharp, with a dark cold air, and the speed was astonishingly fast. Lin Yi's eyes flashed with his true destiny, and he could see Mo Bai's reality. There are two forces flowing in this person's body, one is strange power, and the other is pale essence. Both forces were filled with an icy chill. Mo Bai arrived in front of him in one step, and the sword light brought up countless black chills. These cold air followed the ice sword and turned into a dense black needle, which arrived in front of Lin Yi first. The dense black needles, filled with strange power, covered most of Lin Yi's body. Swish swish. There was a sound of breaking through the air, and 5 bloody tentacles shot out from behind Xuanhuan, intertwining into a death barrier in front of him. Bang bang bang. A series of muffled sounds exploded, and countless black needles were shattered by the barrier formed by 5 bloody tentacles. At this time, the ice sword that had originally struck Lin Yi stopped 3 feet above his head. 5 bloody tentacles stretched out from the left and right sides of the ice sword, trapping the ice sword in mid-air. When Mo Bai saw this scene, his eyes showed a hint of coldness, but his face was full of joy. You are indeed very powerful. It makes me more and more excited. Click. The next moment, the ice sword exploded. It turned into countless sharp black ice and shrouded Lin Yi's head. But at this time, a purple figure had already stood in front of him, completely covering Lin Yi's back. The purple corpse monster held its head in its hands, its arms covered with purple scales, resisting countless ice fragments falling from the sky. These fragments were so powerful that they pierced into its scales, and countless black ice spread quickly, freezing it. A figure flashed in front of the purple corpse monster. His hands were filled with black cold air and he patted it towards the frozen creature. This palm gathered the majestic and strange power of black ice, as well as the infinite ice essence. This is the terrifying power of the cultivation method ice palm combined with the strange power of black ice. The two combine into one. Bang! There was a huge muffled sound, and the body of the purple corpse monster was instantly covered by endless black ice. The 2-meter body turned into a huge ice cube 3 meters high. The next moment, countless cracks appeared on the ice, and it seemed that it was about to break due to the fragmentation of the ice. Boom! With a muffled sound, the purple corpse monster did not break into pieces as the black ice shattered. However, it was not without damage. All the skin and some surface muscles of the body were turned into ice slag. Roar! He roared and suffered trauma, but the purple corpse monster seemed to be fine. He punched Mo Bai crazily in front of him with both fists. Mo Bai had the upper hand with one attack, but suddenly a strange existence appeared in ice. He thought he had a chance to win, but the opponent was not completely frozen by his black ice and blasted to pieces, which was beyond his expectation. Facing the crazy punches, he waved his hands, and a black ice shield formed in front of him to block the fists. Boom boom boom. Several huge muffled noises exploded. Bang bang bang. After taking 3 steps back in a row, Mo Bai's face felt a huge force coming from his hands, causing severe pain in his arms. At this moment, several violent gusts of wind hit behind his head, breaking the air. Not only was there no seriousness on his face, but the crazy expression was even worse, and his eyes were extremely calm. His body shrank, like a bone-shrinking skill, and he instantly squatted on the ground. The ice under his feet grew rapidly, and in an instant it turned into ice shields, blocking behind him. Boom boom boom. Crack crack crack. Several heavy muffled sounds and cracking sounds of ice. Mobai perfectly avoided the danger of being attacked from both sides. A crazy smile appeared on the corners of his mouth, as if the transition between life and death made him excited. Lin Yi stood quietly with his eyes fixed on the back of the purple corpse monster, watching him silently. The muscles of the purple corpse monster were growing rapidly, looking like countless twisted purple earthworms. A strand of muscle kept entangled and connected, and then the epidermis grew. At a speed visible to the naked eye, the external injuries of the body had recovered by more than half. The purple corpse monster took a step forward and stepped on Mobai, who was squatting on the ground. Mobai narrowed his eyes, and black ice rose from in front of him and blocked him directly. The foot moved, like a strange spirit snake, and the strange footsteps flashed around the purple corpse monster. A palm slapped Lin Yi's head behind him. However, 10 tentacles suddenly appeared in front of Lin Yi, slashing towards Mobai with terrifying power. Under the blessing of this strange space, the power of each tentacle can be comparable to the combat power of the peak. 10 tentacles appeared at the same time, even the masters of the human immortal way had to retreat. Mobai narrowed his eyes, and his hands were covered with a layer of dark ice without knowing when. The ice was completely in the form of armor, and the armor was exquisite down to the fingers. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 73. The palms were like knives, bringing up infinite ice and slashing at the 10 tentacles. Bang bang bang. The palm knives were extremely sharp, and the infinite cold air froze the 10 blood tentacles the moment they came into contact. Ding ding ding. A series of harsh cold collisions, all the blood tentacles broke. Mobai rushed towards Lin Yi with a grim smile, and the armor on his hands was like claws, with sharp fingers. But at this time, a terrifying pressure came towards him from the side. He secretly said that it was not good, turned his body, and the cold air burst out of his body, instantly covering the exquisite black ice armor. At the same time, he slapped his palms in the direction of the threat. Bang! Another muffled sound, the huge force made him fly out directly. Boom! With a shock behind him, he hit the bar directly. Crackling! The things in the bar were scattered all over the floor under the huge force. A huge fist wrapped in ice appeared in front of Mobai. With a tilt of his head, his feet flashed with mysterious steps, and the next moment he was at the door of the Wanchaiwu. At this time, Mobai was wrapped in black ice, and the exquisite armor covered his body completely. The joints were all exquisitely structured, flexible without any constraints, mysterious and strange power, black ice. He looked at Lin Yi, revealing a strange expression, two strange things. You really surprised me. I'm afraid it won't be so easy to take you down this time. As he said, a large amount of strange power permeated his body, turning into countless black ice needles around him. His hands fell naturally, and the black ice extended from his palms and turned into two black ice swords. Staring at Lin Yi and the purple corpse monster in front of him, a crazy smile hung on the corner of his mouth. Then let's start the second round, and see if my infinite black snow can kill you and your pet. The body bent slightly, and a sharp murderous intent permeated from Mobai. Lin Yi's expression changed slightly. In his eyes, strange changes occurred within a 1-meter radius around Mobai. A trace of black heaven and earth essence gathered towards him, turning the 1-meter radius around him into an extremely cold area. More and more black fine needles were visible to the naked eye, spreading around him. He knew that next, there would probably be a big collision. The Yiling Sutra and the De Jinggang Sutra were running all over his body. The vigorous essence vibrated in his body, and his whole body was filled with the ultimate essence. It vaguely resonated with the heaven and earth essence of the same attribute in the outside world. A mysterious change was slowly taking place in his body, and the position of the dantian in his lower abdomen began to beat slowly. The hall was quiet. In the previous battle, the floor, tables, chairs, and bar counters had been affected by the collision and swept aside. In the empty hall, you could hear a needle drop. Whoosh! Mobai moved first, and his two swords were like crazy, carrying countless black ice needles, turning into a spiral storm and rushing towards Lin Yi. Roar! Accompanied by a loud roar, the purple corpse monster has already rushed forward. With its terrifying regeneration ability, all the wounds frozen by black ice have been restored. The intact purple corpse monster waved his fists wildly, bringing huge power, and blasted towards the oncoming storm. At the same time, 10 blood tentacles appeared again and chopped towards Mobai in the storm. Boom boom boom. The terrifying collision sound exploded between the storm and the corpse monster's fist. The black ice needles covered the entire front of the purple corpse monster, and countless swords chopped the front of the corpse monster like a storm. The 10 blood tentacles were also swept by the storm and collapsed in the cold and collision. Boom! Accompanied by a huge muffled sound. The purple corpse monster flew to the back under a huge force. A figure crossed the corpse monster, and Mobai, whose black ice armor had been completely shattered, smiled grimly. Looking at Lin Yi with cold eyes, he rushed towards him. Both palms exuded a cold aura, but at this time the aura around him was weakened by half. But it was still the terrifying power of the human immortal and the controller level. Lin Yi's face remained unchanged, and he took a step forward. His whole body was covered with a blue-gold glow, and his skin turned golden. The Great Vajra Seal and the Strange Spirit Sutra were both pushed to the extreme, and his fists were sealed. One Vajra, one fearless, hard against Mobai. The palm seals met, and a huge muffled sound exploded. The two flew backwards under the huge force recoil. Bang! Lin Yi's whole body shook violently, and the majestic power came from his arms, making him cold all over and shaking his mind. In an instant, his lips turned black, and the weird black ice and icy essence surged into his body. It seemed to freeze him from the inside out into ice. But the power of the Strange Spirit Sutra in his body quickly suppressed the power to remove the black ice. This black ice not only spreads coldness, but also tries to devour his vitality. But under the attack of Lingbo, which has a strong ability to restrain the strange power, he was defeated step by step and had no resistance. Strands of strange power rose from his head. Lin Yi's body was stiff and unable to move. With just one blow, he knew that he would die if he faced Mobai alone. Mobai's face was weird. He was knocked back to the door by the blow just now. The strange power in his body kept coming out, as if he could not restrain the strange power in his body. These strange powers swirled around him, twisted, as if they had life, looming and constantly turning into some strange faces. For the first time, Mobai's eyes showed a trace of anxiety, as if he had encountered something incredible. At this time, the spiritual waves from Lin Yi's Yiling Jing in his body were constantly destroying his strange power. He had never encountered such a situation. Kakaka. The purple corpse monster covered with black ice was struggling to get up from the ground. The black ice fell off, revealing the muscles that were still beating. Its eyes looked at Mobai, and its body shook, and all the black ice fell off. At this time, Mobai's face showed a trace of crazy helplessness. It seems that I can't take you down, see you next time. His body retreated, and he instantly retreated from the door of the Wanchaiwu. The black shadow flashed, and it rushed into a nearby alley and disappeared. At this time, the observers outside the Wanchaiwu were all stunned. The person who rushed out was obviously Mo Bai, and the other party seemed to be defeated and retreated. All the forces outside were shocked in their hearts. Being able to defeat Mo Bai, the other party's strength has reached a level. On the second floor where Bai Yuming was, he narrowed his eyes. He was able to defeat Mo Bai. This guy is really powerful, worthy of our recruitment. Huan Yiming heard this and looked at Bai Yuming and said, "Deputy Captain, have you decided to recruit him?" "Yes, under the current circumstances, it is difficult for the major forces to make a move. The next person can only be a higher level person, but such people are not allowed to enter the imperial capital. This is also part of the agreement." The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 74. This man's strength is here, and the first-level masters of the human immortal way are no match for him. Although there will still be people who will not give up, if we recruit him as an external specialist, these people will have to give up. Sometimes, the face of the empire is still very useful. If you lure him with benefits, you should be able to recruit him. As for failure, it doesn't matter. As long as he behaves himself, the empire will not rob him. But people from other forces will always keep an eye on him. There is only a thief who steals for 1,000 days, and there is no one who guards against thieves for 1,000 days. I think he will make the right choice. In the Wanchi house, waves of black strange power were dispelled from Lin Yi's body. The icy essence all over his body was also dispelled by the essence of the great power Vajra seal in his body. It was not until now that he completely recovered from the previous attack. If Mo Bai hadn't left just now, he would immediately summon the other 3 summons to encircle and suppress. Looking at the messy lobby, he moved his mind. Countless mists spread out from all around, and all the broken furniture quickly recovered as before. When the power of the strange cube was integrated into the lobby, all the equipment here had become part of the strange cube. Even if the whole room was demolished, it could be quickly restored to its original state under the power of the strange space. Dong dong dong. Amid the sound of footsteps, Brandy poked his head out of the corridor from the lobby to the backyard. "Manager, it was so intense just now, how is it now?" Brandy, who looked timid, looked at Lin Yi, making Lin Yi roll his eyes. "It's not over tonight yet, you should pay attention at any time, and escape from the tunnel if there is any problem." Lin Yi is a person who plans ahead. In the business of the Wanshiwu, he might offend someone. After renting this house and opening the Wanshiwu, he dug a passage under the kitchen. The passage leads directly to the sewer, and only he and Brandy know where to evacuate quickly. Brandy nodded immediately after hearing this. "I see, store manager, you are really as good as a god, you have calculated everything." Lin Yi's mouth twitched. "The less you plan, the less you win, the more you plan, the more you win, stop talking nonsense, be careful." Brandy looked around, walked quickly to the kitchen, squatted on the ground and opened the passage to the underground. If things go wrong, he will immediately prepare to retreat. Lin Yi continued to sit in the lobby, his essence circulated in his body, repairing the damage from the collision just now. At the same time, he restored the essence consumed in his body. Lin Yi could feel it. After the previous attack, his connection with the outside world seemed to be deeper. Every time the essence circulated, the position of his Danshan Ki was slightly resonating with the energy of the outside world. This night passed quickly, and after Mo Bai left, no one came again. Obviously, the combat power of the Wanchaiwu was beyond everyone's expectations. Early the next morning, the Wanchaiwu opened normally, and Lin Yi sat on the sofa at the door of the lobby, enjoying his breakfast. A grilled fat steak, the most essential part of a cow. It is tender, plump and juicy, and paired with the best black pepper seasoning, it is even more delicious. While thinking about the delicious food, he looked at the street outside. He was observing how many forces were eyeing the Wanchaiwu. A man in a black windbreaker on the street was walking towards the Wanchaiwu. When this man appeared, many forces had recognized him. In the room where Li Kuyang and Li Bolun were, Li Kuyang frowned. "Why is Bai Minjiao, the deputy director of the blood department of the black-clothed man, here?" Li Bolun heard this and looked at Bai Minjiao on the street through the window. "My guess is right, I'm afraid he is going to recruit the owner of the Wanchaiwu. A strange power practitioner at the peak level of the beginner is worthy of being recruited by the black-clothed man. And as long as the owner of the Wanchaiwu agrees to become an external specialist of the black-clothed man, we can't rob him openly. According to the agreement, we can only trade, or risk going to war with the black-clothed man. A fourth-level strange space core strange object is not worth this. Let's take a look first. If the black-clothed man succeeds in recruiting, this matter will end here. We also got a strange object, so it's not too bad." Ringing bell. Bai Minjiao walked into the Wanchaiwu and his eyes fell directly on the position on the left side of the door. He walked over and sat opposite Lin Yi. "Brandy has come over, sir, what do you want?" Bai Minjiao said casually, "A cup of coffee." "Okay." Lin Yi just swallowed the last piece of steak and looked up at Bai Minjiao. "What's your name?" "Bai Minjiao, deputy captain of the blood department of the black-clothed men." Lin Yi's eyes showed a hint of strangeness when he heard this, and he thought to himself, "Black-clothed men? What kind of organization is this?" Bai Minjiao looked at Lin Yi. "The black-clothed men belong to the Red Lotus Empire. It is a special department that specializes in dealing with various unknown events and matters of cultivation." Hearing this, Lin Yi suddenly realized, "What is the purpose of your visit this time?" "Lin Yi, this time you defeated the cutter, the soul-catching woman, and the bloodthirsty 3 entry-level second-level strange power users. And Mo Bai, the white gloves entry-level peak strange power user, the first-level cultivator of the human immortal way. Killed the death god Li Huan, who was suspected to be possessed by the strange existence of the core of the strange illusion. This combat power has attracted the attention of our black-clothed men. On behalf of the Black Blood Department, I invite you to become an external specialist of the Blood Department." External specialist? What are the benefits and responsibilities? Lin Yi thought for a while and asked directly. Bai Yuming smiled and said, "Of course there are benefits, but there are also responsibilities. The first benefit is that the monthly salary of 10 gold coins is quite generous. The second benefit is that you can get a lot of information about the cultivation path and the weird side from us. The third benefit is that after you become an external specialist, you will be equivalent to a civil servant, and it will be very convenient to do many things, especially to deal with various vengeful spirit incidents, which is very suitable for your business, isn't it? The fourth benefit is that you can also complete the commission tasks of the black man in exchange for some resources that cannot be obtained outside." Lin Yi listened to these benefits and was really tempted. He looked at Bai Minjiao. "So what are the obligations?" Bai Minjiao smiled slightly. "Every year, you have to complete a commission from the Red Lotus Empire, involving a task on the weird side." Lin Yi thought about it and looked at Bai Minjiao and said, "What if it is a mission that means you must die?" Bai Minjiao smiled slightly. "That's impossible. We will arrange tasks of the same level based on everyone's actual combat power. Basically, since the establishment of the external employment system, the mortality rate of external employees has been less than 10%. And not everyone is qualified to be an external employee." The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 75. How should I put it? Tianji has mixed feelings about this book. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. The first 120 chapters took Tianji a year to write slowly. I adjusted the plot of the story to make it more reasonable and more story-like. T. It took a long time to write the outline, and I paid special attention to the problem that TNG's supporting characters were very fragile in the past, degree. I feel that the portrayal of supporting characters is much better than in the past degree. It's a pity that the collection results made TNG very sad. Basically, there was only one trial recommendation, and it has been naked until now. It's really sad that it failed, degree. TNG is now opening 2 books at the same time. He will continue to write the previous book, Super Dimension Invasion. Basically, he is a full-time writer. In order to make a living, this book had to bite the bullet and go straight to the shelves, degree. But TNG's works will definitely be completed. This law will never be broken. You can watch it with confidence, so I look forward to your support. After it is put on the shelves, I will see the subscription ratio. If the performance is good, it can be recommended and there may be a wave of performance. If it is not good, I can only write slowly, tt. However, TNG will strive to write 1 million words within 4 months. Recently, there will be 4 updates every day, and it is likely to be like this, so readers can read it more refreshingly. If there are readers who are willing, it would be the best to promote TNG. Of course, it is only limited to free time and interest. This book is the 7th book. I have been writing books for 9 years, but TNG is still a failure. The road to realizing dreams is always difficult. Sometimes I wonder, is it meaningful to persist? Well, I probably just like it very much. There are 316 days in a year, which always tests my perseverance at. Now TNG also takes 2 days off every month, because my fingers have some symptoms of neuritis, and they will tremble when holding the phone. I have quit my job for a year. I write books in the morning and work on the script killing store in the afternoon, making a little money to barely maintain $. Unfortunately, due to the epidemic, the script killing store also closed yesterday. It can be regarded as a failed investment. Although I didn't lose too much, this is the only benefit of cooperations. But when I opened the store, I wrote 2 script games. I plan to talk to the publisher after the epidemic is over. If it can be published, maybe everyone can go to the script killing store to play TNG's script games. They have been tested many times, there are no bugs, and the logic is clear. Leftward arrow. Ha, TNG brags that he is the best, 1 Western Wizard series, 1 Eastern Tomb Robbing series, Magic, Taoism Chi-Fei, it should be suitable for everyone. In the process of writing the script, because each character needs to be portrayed, TNG's characterization of the character will improve. In this book, TNG will continue to portray supporting roles, and then support the protagonist's demeanor. I have said a lot of nonsense. TNG really likes a sentence said by Stephen Chow /U2501. If a person has no dreams, what is the difference between him and a salted fish? We are all people with dreams, so come on, in your spare time, you can support TNG, TNG will be very happy, Omega. TNG hopes to bring spiritual happiness to all those who read my book, to kill the pain of pursuing dreams. After all, pursuing dreams can be difficult, /U30FC. Life is difficult, let's encourage each other. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Xuanhuan TNG. Chapter 76. The basic requirement is to be a cultivator of human immortality or a peak entry-level weird power. Lin Yi was stunned when he heard this and fell into thinking. When the coffee was placed in front of Bai Minjiao, and the brandy turned and left. Bai Minjiao was not in a hurry and waited quietly for Lin Yi's answer. At this time, he seemed to remember something and said with a smile, "By the way, there is another benefit that I forgot to mention. When you become an external commissioner, you are a public servant of the Red Lotus Empire, and you are protected by the Empire. No one or any force can come to you openly and snatch the core weird object of that weird illusion. You can hold it safely while avoiding all dangers. This is an agreement between the Empire and the weird side forces and the spiritual forces." After hearing this last item, Lin Yi was undoubtedly tempted. The strange objects at the core of the strange illusion brought him a huge increase in combat power, but it also brought danger. The position of an external specialist is indeed very favorable and comes with a lot of conveniences. The most important thing is that it can solve his current urgent need. He couldn't find any reason to refuse. The only danger was the annual mission, which required him to be vigilant. He looked at Bai Minjiao and said, "I'll ask another question, how to solve the problem if the annual mission fails?" Bai Minjiao smiled slightly, "It's very simple. I will continue to give you the second task until you complete it. And the task is not specified. There are usually 3 to 4 tasks to choose from. So you can cherry-pick the tasks that, relatively speaking, you feel are the best fit." Lin Yi nodded when he heard this. With such a generous offer, there is really no room for rejection. I agree to become an external employee of the Blood Department. I hope we can have a pleasant cooperation. A bright smile appeared on Bai Minjiao's face. "Okay, it is also an honor for our Blood Department to have Mr. Lin Yi join us. This is the contract. Mr. Lin can check it and then we sign a formal contract. The contract is legally binding and protected by the laws of the Empire." Lin Yi looked at Bai Minjiao, who was well prepared. "Captain Bai, you are really well prepared. That's natural. This kind of matter should be dealt with sooner rather than later." After taking the contract from Bai Minjiao, Lin Yi watched it carefully for a few minutes. After making sure there were no loopholes, I randomly took a pen and wrote my name. Bai Minjiao nodded. "The contract is in 2 copies. You keep 1 copy and I keep 1 here for file. From now on, you are the external commissioner of the Blood Department of the Men in Black. I will announce it soon. In the afternoon, those people watching outside will probably disperse." Lin Yi nodded when he heard the words, "Okay, I'll trouble Captain Bai." Ring ring ring. With the doorbell ringing, Bai Minjiao left Wanchaiwu. In less than an hour, the major forces outside watching Wanchaiwu received the news. The owner of Wanchaiwu, Lin Yi, officially became the external specialist of the Blood Department. The strange core object has belonged to the Empire. At this point, other outside forces began to leave one after another due to the agreement. A 4th-level weird core object in a strange illusion is not worthy of their higher combat power. A storm finally came to an end silently. However, Wanchaiwu Lin Yi has already appeared in the side of the cultivation path and the weird side forces. Being able to defeat Mo Bai has proven his strength. Red Lotus City finally returned to calm, and the turbulent undercurrent disappeared without a trace, as if nothing had ever happened. Lin Yi also resumed his daily routine. Practice, eat, rest, wait for new tasks, and study the true meaning of life. During the attack on the House of All Things, he still observed something through the interpretation of his true destiny. In the backyard, Lin Yi's left and right hands were covered with a golden crystal-like structure. This is the operating mode produced by Mo Bai using the strange power in his body. At that time, he had been standing behind the purple corpse monster, observing the flow of power in Mo Bai's body. The opponent has 2 kinds of power, one is the normal cultivation method, and the other is the strange power that he has mastered. He focused on observing the operation mode of the strange power, because Mo Bai's strange power was obviously very powerful. After observing, he memorized the strange power flow pattern from the opponent's arm to his palm. What was finally completed was the golden crystal-like substance covering the hands, a strange structure. Let the essence of Lin Yi's powerful Vajra seal turn into a material structure with a peculiar structure. However, when the movement of the essence in his arm stops, the crystal structure material will instantly collapse and turn into little golden essence and disappear. This crystal structure material has a strange effect. It was so hard that even the alloy steel knife Lin Yi bought could not cut through the crystal structure when he was running his energy. The only problem is that once this operation mode is activated, his arms will be completely wrapped in crystal and he will be unable to move his fingers. However, in battle, it is most suitable for head-to-head encounters and can provide huge protection. It was similar to what he learned from Yan Menjao, the technique of releasing energy bombs from his fingers. At this time, he already had a new understanding of the power of the strange side and the spiritual path. The way of cultivation is a kind of martial arts power that cultivates the body and spirit. The attribute of the strange power is single, but it is highly destructive, a bit like a magic attack, with many types and unpredictable. At present, he has mastered two more useful ways to use the power through the True Destiny solution. As for the practice of the Tao, he can use the True Destiny solution to switch at any time. But the effect is not as direct and powerful as the use of the strange power. The more practical method of the True Destiny Dao is to observe the users of the strange power. After recording the operation mode of the strange power, after digesting and absorbing it, I will eventually form a set of combat modes that are exclusive to me. At that time, my combat power will have a brand new leap. However, the operation mode of this strange power consumes a lot of energy. Now I have stepped into the limit of the top, and I am only one step away from entering the first level of the human immortal path. Every time I use this operation mode, I have to consume 1/10 of my energy. These abilities can only be used at key points most of the time. In other words, the power of the cultivation path is used as the regular mode, and the operation mode of the strange power is used as the decisive battle mode. Lin Yi was thinking, trying to build his own combat mode, and vaguely had some ideas. "Manager, we should pay the rent for the next quarter." Lin Yi suddenly remembered when he heard this, "Oh, there is still this matter to be solved. Since the core strange object has been integrated into this Xuanhuan, I must buy it here. The House of Everything I Created." Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 77. It's time to talk to the landlord. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. Honglian City is very expensive, and his location is considered a downtown area. The price is probably similar to that of Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou in his previous life. Thinking of completing the mission of Chang Sui, all the gold coins he earned will probably be spent this time. Picking up 30 gold coins, Lin Yi left the Xuanhuan. He carried the blood ring and the wailing ring, as well as the summoning album in his hands. Although the last incident was settled, he was still careful to ensure that he could burst out the strongest combat power at any time. The landlord of the Xuanhuan was on another street. His family was a native of Honglian City, so they had a lot of properties. Relying on renting out the houses in the Xuanhuan, their family still lived very comfortably. Soon, Lin Yi arrived at number 38, Nankei Street, and a single-family house appeared in his eyes. The single-family house looked quite old and full of the sense of the times. The mottled walls and old red bricks all showed the sense of the times of this single-family house. The door was still the double-opening wooden door of the dynasty 100 years ago. There were 2 copper rings on the 2 wooden doors, which were very smooth and obviously used for a long time. The single-family house in the quadrangle courtyard, located in this Honglian city, is also worth a lot of money. Dang dang dang. Lin Yi stood in front of the door and knocked on the copper ring. Along with the knocking sound, a somewhat dry and old voice sounded. "Who is it?" "Old man Qian, I'm here to pay the rent." Creak. The 2 wooden doors opened, revealing an old man with a pale face inside. Qian Bolan, the owner of this quadrangle courtyard building, is also the owner of the house in Wanchaiwu. However, at this time, Qian Bolan had a trace of indifference and sorrow on his face, as if he had encountered something bad. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows. Old Qian, you look like you're in trouble. None of your business, just pay the rent, Qian Bolan blurted out, spitting a lot of saliva on his face. Lin Yi dodged. Old Qian, this is not a way to treat guests. It seems that you really encountered something, it seems to be something unclean, right? Old Qian, who was originally impatient, froze when he heard this, and looked at Lin Yi. How did you know? Lin Yi smiled. Of course I saw it. At this time, the light of the true destiny in his eyes was flashing, and a trace of inexplicable strange power was entangled with old Qian. However, this strange power only surrounded him and was slowly dissipating. Obviously, the source was not on old Qian, but on other items. Old Qian's face was changing, and he looked at Lin Yi. Come in and talk. He made way, and Lin Yi nodded and walked in. Clang. The door closed, and old man Qian walked in front of Lin Yi and walked towards the small building in the courtyard. In front of this single-family courtyard is a small courtyard full of flowers and plants, which is well maintained. The lush green and blooming flowers make the courtyard full of vitality. After a few steps through the flowers and plants in the small courtyard, they came to the door of the single-family building. This small building has obviously undergone modern transformation, and floor-to-ceiling windows have replaced the old walls. People can also enjoy the scenery of the small courtyard outside in the small building, a quiet and elegant environment. Walking into the first floor of the small building, a living room with a dark red background, a strong oriental style hits the face. There are several old chairs against the wall on the left, and there are several small coffee tables next to the chairs. Sit. Old man Qian sat on the old chair at the end of the living room and pointed to the first chair on his right. Lin Yi sat down, and old man Qian looked a little heavy. My wife died 3 years ago, leaving behind an 8-year-old son. He's 11 years old this year. When Lin Yi heard this, Ming Grui felt something was wrong. Is there something wrong with your son? Old man Qian showed a trace of pain on his face. Yes, 3 days ago. He fell in front of an abandoned mansion, and when he was found, he had lost consciousness. There has always been a legend about that abandoned mansion, and many children disappeared there. I warned Rui'er not to go there. But I don't know what happened, he actually appeared there. How is your son now? Lin Yi asked thoughtfully. I sent him to the hospital, and everything was normal after the examination, but he just couldn't wake up. Now I put him at home, and he is maintained by regular infusion every day. As he said this, the old man Qian's face became more worried. I guess he was possessed by evil spirits. Do you have a way to save him? Lin Yi thought about it after hearing this. You have to take me to see it first. Only when I know the specific situation can I know whether I can deal with it. Okay, come with me. It seems that Lin Yi really has a way. As if grasping a life-saving straw, old man Qian showed a trace of excitement on his face. As long as you can save my Rui'er, I can agree to any reward. Lin Yi heard this and smiled even more. Ha ha ha, old man Qian is quick to speak. Let's take a look first. Old man Qian took Lin Yi through the inner hall corridor and came to the door of a room on the second floor. Opening the door, he saw an ordinary bedroom with some medical machines next to it. A child about 11 years old was lying on the bed with an 4 tube inserted in his arm. Next to him was an 4 stand, which was full of 4 bottles, and drops of liquid were injected into the child's body along the 4 tube. A nurse in a white coat was sitting next to him and watching him. Lin Yi raised his eyebrows. It was obvious that old man Qian could hire a private nurse and have these medical equipment. His family was rich. However, he didn't say anything, but his eyes were fixed on the child on the bed. He walked over and looked at the child on the bed with his eyes closed, completely falling asleep. The true meaning of life flashed in his eyes, and he frowned. In his eyes, the child was completely an empty shell, without any trace of mental fluctuations. Any living person has traces of mental fluctuations on their bodies. Only the dead will not have mental fluctuations in their bodies. The mental consciousness of the dead will generally dissipate in the world. Only mental fluctuations with some strong emotions can remain. In traditional myths, this kind of thing is called a ghost, but now it is called a vengeful spirit. Usually, the emotions that can keep the spirit and consciousness fluctuating are extremely negative emotions such as resentment and anger. There are only a few resentful spirits with good intentions, so usually these resentful spirits will pose a threat to normal society. Lin Yi's previous job was to eliminate such resentful spirits, and his Yuling Sutra had a huge restraining effect on such resentful spirits. For the first time today, he did not see mental fluctuations from a living person. On the contrary, he saw some black strange power from the child, entrenched in his body. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 78. Is this strange power the reason why the child's spirit and consciousness are not in the body? After thinking for a while, he walked over and stretched out his hand to touch the boy's head gently. The strange power was strongest on his head. A faint green light rose from Lin Yi's hand, and the black strange power was like white snow meeting the sun. It melted at a speed visible to the naked eye and turned into nothingness. A faint green light quickly covered every part of the child's body. Seeing this magical scene, the old man Qian next to him showed a trace of tension on his face, trying to suppress his excitement. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. For fear of disturbing Lin Yi if something went wrong. Time passed by minute, and in the blink of an eye it was a minute. Lin Yi retracted his right hand, and the light of the true destiny flashed in his eyes. The child still did not wake up, and his body was empty, although his heart was still beating. But without consciousness, it's just a living corpse. How is it, can Ruier wake up? Old man Qian asked with a nervous and disappointed expression. Lin Yi glanced at him, and the nurse next to him also looked at him in surprise. Obviously, she knew from the magical scene just now that Lin Yi was an extraordinary person who mastered the power of martial arts. It's not that simple. I just eliminated the evil power entrenched in him. In this way, he can be like an ordinary vegetative person. As long as he replenishes nutrition regularly every day, he will not die in a short time. What happened to Ruier, can you tell me? Old man Qian's eyes were a little dim, but a little expectant. The people in the hospital couldn't find any problems at all, and he was almost completely desperate. Looking at old man Qian's expectant and desperate eyes, Lin Yi thought for a while and said, "Your son's consciousness is not in his body. In layman's terms, his soul is lost. If you want him to wake up, you have to find his soul." Old man Qian's face changed when he heard this, as if he thought of something. Looking at Lin Yi in surprise, he said, "I know, it must be that abandoned mansion. There are many legends about that mansion, one of which is the lost soul. Once the soul loses its direction in that place, it will never wake up again." Lin Yi nodded. "It seems that the abandoned mansion you mentioned really has a huge problem. Lin Yi, you must help me find my son's soul. I will give you whatever you want." Lin Yi smiled, "I can't guarantee that I can find your son's soul 100%, but I can try. I am a fair trader and I don't cheat anyone. The reward I want is to sell the Wanchaiwu to me if I solve the problem with your son." "Okay, no problem, as long as you can save my son, I can give it to you." Old man Qian was excited all over, and he saw the light in despair. He could give up anything. Lin Yi shook his head, "No need to send it, I won't take advantage of others, equal exchange. Now, tell me where the abandoned house is, I want to take a look." In the evening, Lin Yi left old man Qian's house and walked towards the end of the street. Number 99, Nankei Street, a somewhat strange number. There are still many shops on both sides of Nankay Street, but there is no shop within 10 meters around number 99. Even some empty shops are ignored. There is a sign for rent on the door of the shop, and it is obvious that it is difficult to rent it out. Turning around to look at the door of number 99, Nankay Street, this is also a single-family house. The wall is mottled, and the paint and mortar on it have long dried and fallen, revealing pieces of grey bricks and stones. The wall of number 99 is 20 meters long, occupying a considerable section of Nankay Street. There is a small broken hole in the corner of the wall, enough for children and small animals to get into it. Did you get in from here? After looking at the sky, Lin Yi did not rush in, but walked towards the shops near Nankay Street. Soon he found a target. A small noodle shop. It looked like it had been in business for at least 10 years, and many of the stains inside were left over a long period of time. The boss was a middle-aged man in his 40s, with a round belly, and he was already at the age of being fat. Lin Yi walked over, a bowl of steamed noodles. Okay, wait a minute. Sitting at a table, Lin Yi quietly waited for the boss to serve the noodles. It was obviously not so good in the evening. A few minutes later, a bowl of fresh soybean noodles was served. Lin Yi tasted it and it tasted really good. The shop that has been open for more than 10 years relies on its craftsmanship. After a few minutes of eating the noodles, Lin Yi looked at the boss and said, "Boss, your noodles are good." The boss grinned and said, "Of course, this is a time-honored brand with more than 10 years of history, so of course it tastes good. The sauerkraut is made of fine meat that I carefully selected, cut into fine minced meat, and made after several processes. Real ingredients, different from those outside. You really put in a lot of effort," Lin Yi praised. At this time, he suddenly said, "By the way, boss, I want to ask you something." The boss smiled and said, "What do you want to ask?" "I'll tell you if I know. Is there a lot of legends about the abandoned mansion next to it?" The boss's face changed slightly when he heard the words, and he glanced at Lin Yi and said with a serious face, "That was a famous haunted house in the previous dynasty, and many things happened there." Lin Yi had a gossipy look on his face. "What happened? I'm curious." The boss looked at Lin Yi. "Young man, I'll tell you, but you must not go in, that room is very evil." "Don't worry, I'm just curious and want to find out." The boss seemed to have not chatted with others for some time, and immediately started to talk non-stop. "I heard that the mansion belonged to a wealthy family in the previous dynasty before the empire was established. I heard that on a dark and windy night, the whole family suddenly died. Even the child who was less than a month old died. The murder even alarmed the government, but in the end the government could not find out the origin. Later, the house was sealed by the government and sold after some repairs. But everyone who moved in didn't live there for long, and some even died suddenly that night. After that, no one dared to buy the house, so it was taken back by the government and no one managed it. Gradually, the mansion became a ruin." Lin Yi listened to the boss's gossip, nodded from time to time, and showed an exaggerated expression. It greatly satisfied the boss's vanity and made him say more. "Later, decades ago, accidents often happened here, and some children disappeared here. Someone saw them enter the house, and then the parents of the missing children rushed in to search frantically, and even called the police to search. But in the end, nothing was found." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 79. After that, more and more children disappeared, and this place became a place that everyone was afraid of. There was even a fire set by angry parents, and they wanted to burn down the place. It even alarmed the big shots in the police station, and they sent people to guard this place and not allow children to get close. I heard that the big shot invited a master to perform a ritual here. It's strange, nothing happened after the ritual, but the police didn't let people live in it. It's been quiet for many years, but every July 7th, there will be strange sounds of musical instruments in the mansion, which is very strange. Everyone nearby knows about this and never dares to get close. A few days ago, I heard that another child had an accident. He fell in front of this mansion. Fortunately, the person was found this time, but he was unconscious. Otherwise, there would be a big commotion again. The store manager had a mysterious expression at this time, and seemed a little scared and a little expectant. My child, my child. A shrill cry sounded, startling the entire Nankei street. Many people walked out of the nearby shops and courtyards, all looking towards the place where the screams came from. Outside the gate of number 99 Nankei Street, a woman knelt on the ground. At the hole in the wall, she looked at a little red shoe with despair on her face. Call the police quickly. My child is missing. The woman was almost crazy. She looked at the gap in the wall of the abandoned mansion in horror. Her eyes were full of despair, and she had obviously heard the legends here. The horror house that specializes in swallowing children, the ghost grandmother who swallowed children, and so on. One horror story after another related to this place flashed through her mind. She trembled all over, thinking that she might never see her child again. Her face was full of despair. Suddenly her eyes rolled, her body stiffened, and she fell backwards. The people around her were in a mess, and there was a mess of noise. Another child is missing. Call the police quickly. Ambulance, this woman fainted. In the noise, Lin Yi paid for the noodles, stood in the distance, and watched the scene quietly. Another child is missing? It seems that something has changed here. The light of the true destiny flashed in his eyes. This abandoned house was filled with a strong black atmosphere. In the black atmosphere, there seemed to be many painful expressions flickering. A gloomy feeling would make anyone who approached here have an urge to stay away. This urge is the instinctive distance of life from death. Take a deep breath, and a gleam of light appeared in Lin Yi's eyes. Sure enough, there is a problem. It seems that I have to go in and take a look. Woo 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 woo. The sound of ambulances and police cars kept ringing. The fainted woman was quickly transported to the ambulance and sent to the distance. Several police officers also quickly blocked the scene and put up a fence. Opened the door of the abandoned house and walked into the abandoned house. These police officers had obviously heard of the strange story of this abandoned house. Each of them was very cautious and had no intention of separating. A group of 4 people searched the entire small building. In the end, nothing was found, and there was no trace of any missing children. After the police officers came out, they could only cordon off the small building completely. It was already 8 o'clock in the evening, and the crowds of people watching the excitement gradually dispersed. The front of number 99 Nankei Street soon became deserted. Only Lin Yi stood in the shadow not far away, staring at the abandoned house. The Daoji Zhenming kept flashing in his eyes, and he saw a terrifying scene. With the arrival of night, the black atmosphere in the abandoned house became more and more serious. There were traces of black mist floating into the abandoned house on the ground and in the air around. In a hazy and illusory world, the abandoned house seemed to have become a strange unknown world. One step away, there are 2 worlds. Taking a deep breath, Lin Yi's eyes condensed, and he prepared dozens of talismans of the soul-suppressing sutra in his arms. It can help him deal with most of the ordinary resentful spirits. Wearing 2 strange rings on his left hand, wearing gloves on both hands, and holding a summoning picture book in his arms, he is always in a state of bursting the highest combat power. He came to the outside of the wall silently, raised his hands and grabbed the top of the wall. He suddenly exerted force, turned over and jumped into the mansion. Puff! There was a dry grass under his feet, and a faint cold wind blew in his face. What he saw was a dark abandoned house, with withered weeds on the ground and broken stone roads. The front yard of this mansion is about 100 square meters, and a stone road extends from the gate to the end of the courtyard. There is a two-story single-family building. The small building is full of the atmosphere of the times, and the mottled pillars are already covered with cracks and a withered yellow color. The gate has long been tattered, and the rice paper on the window above has long been turned into fragments and disappeared. Lin Yi looked carefully and walked towards the small building. Halfway through, he suddenly paused and his face became ugly. A stream of illusions appeared around, and the whole courtyard became prosperous in a breath. Exquisite sculptures with carved railings and jade bricks, colorful paint covering the buildings. Countless guests sat at round tables in the courtyard, looking into the gate of the small building. A wedding was being held there, and countless guests were blessing the newlyweds. Lin Yi stood among the countless guests, looking very eye-catching, but it seemed that none of them noticed him. He looked solemn, looking around. Every guest looked so real, not fake at all. But when a person passed through Lin Yi's body, he was sure that these were all false illusions. Did it happen here in the past? I heard before that mirages and geomagnetism would preserve the images of the time, but I didn't expect to encounter it. His eyes sank with emotion, and he carefully observed this mysterious photo. There was no sound, only countless people doing various things in this wedding. Some were drinking, some were eating, some were flattering each other, and some were congratulating each other. The whole mansion was full of laughter and toasts. But there was no sound at all, and the dead silent courtyard made Lin Yi feel an inexplicable chill. At this time, he walked towards the small building. The bright hall of the small building was the place for worship, and it was bright red. Today's protagonist couple has been sent to the bridal chamber, and only the elders of the two families are here to entertain guests. Lin Yi's eyes swept across the auditorium, and a bright red light appeared. The auditorium was in this dead silence, giving people a strange sense of horror, and people couldn't help but get goosebumps. Passing through the auditorium, Lin Yi followed the red candle light to the corridor behind the auditorium. This place is still full of the atmosphere of a wedding, but it seems like ancient times. After a few steps, he came to the door of a room with a big wedding character on it. The House of Everything I Created. Author, Yinian Luan Tianji. Chapter 80. The door was closed and Lin Yi pushed it open and entered. Crunch. There was a sound of scraping against the wooden door, and a gust of cold wind blew through. Lin Yi saw the scene inside. Under the light of red candles, the bride covered her head was sitting on the bed. She had a large belly and looked as if she was pregnant out of wedlock. He frowned and said, in that era, getting pregnant before marriage was a sign of unruly women. However, this family still married her. It seems that she should be the child of this family. At this time, a figure came from outside and passed Lin Yi. It was a man with a somewhat handsome face, but instead of excitement, there was a gloominess on his face. He came to the bride and pulled off the red hijab. Dang dang dang. The hijab hooked with the phoenix crown, fell to the ground together, and rolled several times. A pale and gorgeous face appeared in Lin Yi's eyes. The groom raised his right hand and slapped the bride in the face. The bride fell directly onto the bed under the slap, and the groom looked ferocious and jumped on her without caring that she was pregnant. Suddenly, the picture freezes, the red light recedes, and a new illusion appears. The illusion became something else. A man in black appeared here, holding a steel knife and slashing at the groom. The groom had a look of despair on his face. He was wearing a green suit and waving his hands, trying to resist the light of the sword. But the sword flashed, cutting off the groom's arm, and slicing into his throat. Blood spurted out, and the groom fell on the bed. Blood spurted out, staining the room red. After killing the groom with a knife, the assassin rushed out the door. Lin Yi stepped forward and followed. It was dark outside, and from time to time you could see the flash of a knife, which was a life. Every living thing in the mansion was on the march to be killed. Lin Yi looked at all this and thought, is this the scene where the whole family was wiped out? Why is there no such thing as this illusion spreading outside? With doubts, he kept searching the small building, looking for every dead person. The person who disappeared here must be hiding somewhere in this small building. The spiritual consciousness of old man Qian's son, Qian Rui, should also be lost here. Of course, if his spiritual consciousness still exists and is not wiped out in ashes. You must not die, otherwise it will not be so easy for me to get the title deed of Wanchaiwu. Maintaining vigilance, Lin Yi wandered around the silent building, and from time to time he could see the illusion of a dead person on the ground. And the killers who are constantly searching and rummaging through boxes and cabinets. As time passed by, Lin Yi frowned. He was sure that everyone in the house except the bride was dead. Suddenly he stopped and glanced at the walls of the stairs and corridors of the small building. There are many picture frames and photos hanging there. The Red Lotus world already had cameras and photos more than 100 years ago, although they were black and white. At this time, his eyes fell on some photos, and he discovered something strange. Each photo showed a stranger, completely unrelated to the vision seen in the mansion. The people in the photo were all looking at Lin Yi, their eyes lifeless, filled with the aura of death. There was a slight chill in my heart. Is this the person missing in this room? Caught in a framed photo. Lin Yi no longer paid attention to other strange phenomena in this small building, but walked towards one of the photo frames. In the photo frame is the front yard of the small building. A child is standing there with an expressionless face. He looks about 11 years old. The eyes were empty and lifeless. After careful observation, I saw a trace of incongruity in the photo. The boy was facing him, wearing shorts and short sleeves. At this time, the other party seemed to be getting closer to him. The shoes on the other party's feet could be seen in the original photo. But now the shoes are no longer visible, only the calves are visible. Interesting, a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. Lin Yi's eyes flashed, and the world in his eyes completely changed. All the illusions disappeared from his eyes, and there were only countless dark breaths of resentment. These resentful breaths constitute one illusion after another, and this is their true face. On the wall, there were square photo frames like black holes, with a pair of eyes looking at him inside. Every black hole photo frame is the same eye. The eyes in the frame he was closest to were moving toward him. The next moment, eyes suddenly burst out of the black photo frame. What kind of eye is there? It's an illusory tentacle made of pitch black smoke. At the top of the tentacles were two eyeball-like things, extending out from the photo frame and swooping towards Lin Yi. Lin Yi frowned, raised his hand and struck down with a seal. The powerful Vajra seal was accompanied by the golden demon subduing seal, and struck the smoke tentacle with one blow. Bang! There was a sound like bursting a bubble, and the smoke tentacles collapsed instantly. Two eyes fell from above and landed at Zhuang Wuming's feet. As the smoke tentacles collapsed, the black air that filled the small building quickly shrank as if it was frightened. All the blackness disappeared from Lin Yi's eyes. Lin Yi's true destiny interpretation did not see any other traces. The blue light in his eyes slowly faded, and Lin Yi felt his own consumption. 5% consumption can be recovered within a few minutes. After calculating the consumption of blue light in the Foreign Spiritual Sutra, Lin Yi looked around. The small building has become a dilapidated color, dark, and you can't see your hand in front of you. Lin Yi's eyes are empty and white, and he can see everything around him clearly. The second floor and the first floor have been searched, and nothing strange has been found. Logically speaking, there should be hidden passages and mezzanines here. Otherwise, the body of the bride of this family would not have been seen in that massacre. She must have hidden, but she should be dead. Otherwise, the news that the whole family was exterminated would not have spread outside. Everywhere has been searched, and the only hidden place that may still exist is probably only one place. Underground secret room. Lin Yi had a goal and began to explore every corner of this first floor for possible mechanisms. At the same time, he kept knocking on the ground, trying to find the passage leading to the underground. For a long time, there was no harvest. He was almost finished searching this house covering an area of thousands of square meters, but still found nothing. The ground was solid, and there was no passage leading to the underground. The ground in the front yard was also explored one by one, and the backyard was also explored. This is strange, is there really no hiding place here? Lin Yi stood in the direction of the backyard with a strange expression, looking at the small building inexplicably. Suddenly, he had an idea and looked at a corner of the backyard, where there was a well.